everybody. Welcome to the Straight Outta BS podcast. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Thank you guys for all of your support. Interacting with the video in any way pushes it into the algorithm and pushes it out to new people that might not know about these places, know about what we went through. And the more people that know about it, the more chance at changing some laws or getting something done about this. So just interact with the video, sharing, liking the video, commenting. And if you're not subscribed already, I would really appreciate you subscribing if you support my work. I want to thank my Patreon members, anybody that's donated financially. I never ask for donations, and it's never an expected thing. So whenever it happens, just really appreciate you. So to anybody that's on my Patreon or anybody that's joined the channel, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you. I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything like that. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
Awesome. So my name is Steve. I first went into the industry for the first time when I was 11 years old, and I've been to, I think it's like 4 or 5 different places. So the first one is called Dominion in Virginia, Dominion Hospital. The second place is called RIKARTC, which is a state facility. The third place is called Shady Grove, which is another hospital. But RIKARTC is like an RTC, like a residential treatment center type deal. And then after Shady Grove, I had also been to a place called San Marcos Treatment Center, which is owned by Brown Schools and now UHS. And then after that, I went to a program called Threesprings in Paint Rock Valley. And they're owned by, well, they're closed down now, but the people that ran that are the same people that run Vivint Behavioral Health today. But they got closed down in 2011. So that's those were all the places that I had been. And, you know, between the ages of like 11 and 18, I was home for about 1.5 years of that. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. And walk us through like your childhood and what led up to you being sent away to the first place.
Yeah, man, that's the craziest part about this whole thing, man. Like, I didn't even know until I was like fucking 28. At the real root of it, my mom basically had an affair, having an affair before I was born, and she was married to my brother's dad, basically. And he was like not that much older than me. But she ended up getting pregnant and having me. But the guy she was married to wasn't my dad. But she told him that I was. He just never believed it. Not even from the jump. As soon as I came out of the womb, telling everybody, you know, they didn't think I was his and everything like that. So once I found out when I was older, I realized how much that colored everything that happened in my life. Because nobody told me, you know, I was the goofy one out, you know, joke was on me. But even my stepmom, who was there for most of the time, basically like my biological mom, you know, she left when I was 6 months old. I don't know if she left or they parted ways or how it worked really, but at the end of the day, for some reason, my dad was like adamant about keeping us, both of us, you know. Mm-hmm. And so then my stepmom jumped in the picture, you know, shortly after that, a few months later. And she had been there pretty much throughout, all the way to the end. But my biological mother, she's bipolar and drug addict, alcoholic, postpartum, whole thing, man. Like, so I think that that had a bit of impact on how I kind of like developed as a young kid and behaved. My brother, you know, physically abusive, beat me up even from a young age. Like he hit me when I was in my crib, and yeah, my dad, like everything. It was fucked up. Um, so by the time I got old enough to get into school, like, you know, it wasn't really a surprise that, you know, I was like, hey, if I had a problem, I dealt with it by hitting somebody, you
Yeah.
know. But, you know, my parents never wanted that heat. You know, they never wanted responsibility. You know, kids just don't do that shit, you know, for no reason. When they're 3, you know, or 4.
Yeah.
But so I started getting in trouble from a very young age, you know, pretty much as soon as I got up out the household, more or less. And you know, in first grade, like my biological mother came back around, wanted to fight for custody, get visitations and stuff like that. And that shit was bad. Like she was equally as abusive, um, you know, physically, emotionally, beat me, locked me in my room. You fucking name it, dude. Like she's unmedicated. She never took her meds.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't realize this as a kid. I didn't understand it, but I was like, they kept on making me go back for visitations. And they'd be like, oh, she's gonna call the cops or she's gonna make you cut or stuff like that. I'm like, why don't y'all just like tell somebody?
Yeah.
So eventually, like, I just started fighting back. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was fighting on visitations with her. I was fighting at home. You know, parents, everything like that. So I go to school and you know, second grade, somebody telling me to shut up. I, you know, turn around, punch them in the mouth, and they're bleeding. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't know how to handle it, man. Like, I think that like ultimately, like, you know, I wasn't a big kid, um, and I couldn't really I tried to redirect some of that aggression at them, but like, I really couldn't.
Yeah.
So they came out of the places. They got me up to special ed by the time I was like fourth grade, something like that. I was getting suspended a lot, fighting in school. Um, you know, I just never took any shit from anybody. I think, you know, when you look at kids that are in abusive situations, you got two types. You got the ones that they submit and they try to go along with it and make it easy. And then you got the ones that fight. And I was always a fighter from day one.
Yeah. And then I feel like there's also the ones that isolate completely, you know?
Yeah, I feel, you know, dissociative types, you know, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, that's kind of part of the submitting part where it's like, you know, I can't do anything about this, you know, and I'm stuck in this situation. So I'm just going to like dissociate and isolate, just kind of
Yeah.
like try to take my mind away from this place or this situation. But something inside of me, low key, ended up being genetic. I was just a fighter, man. Like, but, um, so yeah, like, I think it was by, you know, fast forward, I mean, the 6th or 7th grade, like, you know, I get suspended so much at school and stuff like that. And like, you know, I had my basically the incident that kicked off like my first trip somewhere, which was Dominion in Virginia. Um, there's this incident with this kid, like at the after school program. And I don't know, man, like I think we were like playing like N64 or something. He like took the controller from me and like my seat and like wouldn't give it back. And I just got tripped up and triggered off of it. And like I punched him in his side. But I was like 11, so I didn't realize it was actually like a kidney shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, because I'm standing, he's sitting like elevated, like on this table. It's just kind of like a bad angle, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so the kid kind of got hurt a little bit there. And my dad was like, yo, we gotta like take you to this place to like, I don't know, get you some help or something like that. honestly, I just felt like it was like trying to like deflect attention off of themselves or anything like that. You know what I mean? Just, you know, rather, because a lot of times, I mean, nowadays is like kids do like shit like that at school, and they're like, "Yo, what the fuck is going on inside of their kid's house?"
Yeah.
That they're coming in here and doing this, and like my parents were afraid of that shit, man. I mean, they used to tell me all the time, even when I was a kid, they'd be like, "You have any idea how this makes us look?" And I'm like, I didn't get it, but
Yeah.
you know, that's what it was. So, you know, they took me to this place, and it's an acute short term mental hospital, right? You know,
Was,
and
was this? Did you say like? Did you say okay, I'll go, or were you forced to go? Was it a forced thing?
yeah, I mean, like it wasn't forced like the ones later where it's like you're gonna get escorted and like cuffed and like stuff like that. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
wasn't like that, but it was like you got to do this. You know,
Yeah. Okay.
we're gonna take you here, like we're gonna do this. So it's like,
Okay.
um, you know, don't make it harder than it has to be.
Okay.
Um, so I went, and I didn't really understand. I mean, they told me, you know, it's gonna be like a weekend. You know what I mean? Like something like that, and it was fucked up, man. I was young, you know. And what was really more fucked up was it's like they have like children units here. Like a few of the places I've been to have like children's units, like 6 to 11. And I was just at the top of the age bracket to not be put in like an adolescent unit. So like there were kids that were 6, 7 years old there, man. Fucking horrific, dude. And everything that you know about, like, you know, hallways, booty juice, people getting jumped, you know, holds, isolation rooms, like straight jackets, like the whole thing except it's fucking kids, man. Like straight ass fucking kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids come from the state or whatever. But I remember my first night, man, there was a pair of brothers in there. And like I was just laying in my room and they like ran in there into this other kid's room and they just started like beating the shit out of him with a bag of like dominoes or soap or something. You know, like it was like I could hear it. It was wild.
They gave him a soap party.
Yeah, man. Like my first night, dude. Like, um, you know, I ended up spending some time in isolation in there, changed different medications, add different medications. I ended up getting shots and stuff like that in there.
Now, were you on any sort of medication before you went there?
Yeah, like I think that they had tried like a few different ones, but I wasn't like taking anything like consistently, but like, you know, my parents, it was interesting, like from an industry standpoint, because when I was a pretty young age, like when I started getting trouble in elementary school, um, you know, they started trying to take me to doctors right off the brick, and they like shot me around to different doctors.
Hmm.
You know, I remember going to like 5 or 6 different doctors, like early on, like when I was like in you know, first, second grade, something like that. And initially they were trying to say I was ADD, but like it just wasn't really flying like that. And
So
eventually,
one doctor would say no, and they'd go to the next doctor. Is that the whole thing that was going on?
nah, like one doctor would say like that I was ADD, and they'd be like, "No, nah, we don't really think he's ADD." And then they go to another doctor, and they'd be like, "No, nah, well, we don't think he's ADD." And they're like, "Well, what do you think?" And they're like, "Well, we don't really know."
Okay.
So like after like the fifth or sixth one, they're like, "Well, you know, you said that his mom was bipolar, so like I think he's bipolar." And so that's the label that they tried to slap me with.
Okay.
And so those are the kind of medications that they're giving me and stuff like that when I'm in there. And man, the amount of medications that I ended up having to take and stuff like that, the overdrugness, that really started taking place later.
Mhm.
Um, but it was pretty wild, man. Like, you know, I was taking at one point 3.5 grams, not so 3,500 milligrams of assorted medications on a daily basis.
That's
Um,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's 650 milligrams of Seroquel was part of that.
Fuck Seroquel.
Yeah, it's a lobotomy in a pill, man. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But you know, I spent about 72 hours in this place, and you know, it scared the shit out of me, but it hardened me up a little bit. You know, I wasn't there for too long, and I had some exposure therapy and stuff like that before, but like, you know, in terms of like a program, like a level card system, or like, you know, shit like that. I mean, I didn't retain much of it because it was quick, man. Like, I, I I was introduced to those kind of concepts, but like I wasn't like taking it all in.
Yeah. So
Um,
the first place you went at Dominion, that was 72 hours.
yeah, they're an acute stay type of place. Like you're really not supposed to be there for more than a week, but they did have a residential unit that was in a different wing.
Okay. Like if you got committed like by court or something like that.
Yeah, or even like if you were like a ward of the state or something like that, like you know, and I ran into these a lot of places when I kids like this when I was in Rika, you know what I mean? It's like if your dad wasn't around and your mom was like, you know, on crack, you know what I mean? It was like this is where you just had to live and go to school because, you know, there wasn't a foster home or it was hard to adopt like a young boy, you know, in a short time period or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and they have nobody to vouch for them at
Yeah,
all.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I I ended up getting out of there and like yeah, it definitely made it worse.
Hmm.
um, but I was still getting in trouble. But it was fast, man. Like I think this happened in like the spring of 2002,
Okay.
I think, and then by like the summer or fall of 2002, they had me in this place called Rika, and it's technically like a special education school. It's part of the public school system.
Interesting.
Yep. But they have a residential treatment facility on there as well attached to it. So you can just go to school there or you can live there and go to school there too.
That's
And
weird.
and they can escalate you into the juvenile detention facility that's literally right next door to it. Like you can see it out the windows. And you know, kind of like you've heard about some other places like, you know, with the places just in Jamaica and stuff like that, they'd be like, man, you act bad, like we're gonna put you over there in a motherfucking jumpsuit.
Yeah, no, that's what they threatened me with at Spring Creek Lodge because I rebelled for the first year and they threw me in isolation one day. They were like, if you keep acting like this, we're just going to send you to Jamaica. Your parents have already signed their rights away when they signed you up for here. So we don't even need to tell them you're there until you're placed there. And I was like, and they're like, essentially, like, if you want to badmouth there, they'll just break your arm. Ask you again if you want to keep it up. Like,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah,
they were
that's,
like, we're state employees, so it's like if you ended up like assaulting one of them too bad or something like that, that it was like, yeah, we could file charges and just send you
yep.
to jail next door. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
saw this happen a couple times.
yeah, so like I found out recently that it was like, you know, my parents they tried to tell me that like the state said that I had to live there. That wasn't true. That
Yeah.
wasn't true, man. And I just found this out like a week ago. But like, state said I had to go to school there, but you know, they wanted me to live there. And they told them they, you know, I think they, you know, the county pushed back on it and they're like, hey, you know, we'll evaluate them and see if it's a good fit. And so they surreptitiously just like kind of dropped me off. Like they took me there and they're like, hey, look, like you got to stay here just for the weekend. And,
Yeah.
you know, they're going to evaluate. So, and of course I was bricked up. You know what I mean? Like I was like, hold on, what the fuck? Like, I mean, I kind of had like a little bit of experience with that other part, and they told me it was just a weekend, so I wasn't gonna like trip too hard about it. But
Yeah.
like at the same time, I was like, man, why the fuck am I like somewhere else, like in this place, and like I gotta be here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end of the weekend, they were like, yeah, like you can't leave, like you can't go home. And I was 12, and it's like right before my birthday, I think. Honestly, like I was fucked up. Um, so this place, you know, is interesting because the program, if you will, quote unquote, is not so bad. You know, the card system, the levels, the privileges, that kind of stuff. Not so bad. They don't really care about like trying to like keep you because they're like a government institution.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they're not private, like they don't have like those same motivations. So it's like nobody's like trying to like gotcha, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was a lot better. But the big two things that sucked was it was violent with kids, it was violent with staff. You know, they had these things called burritos. They were these like literally like a human burrito, like a giant body-sized piece of burlap that had 2x4s interwoven into it, and giant like industrial zippers, and then straps on it. And if they had to put you into a hold and you wouldn't calm down, or like they couldn't get you into a hold, then they would put you in one of these things, and you would lay there for hours and hours. And me personally, I think I only had to be in it twice, maybe once. Um,
How long were you in there?
4 hours, 5 hours, something like that. That wasn't even considered bad, man. Like there was this kid. I remember when I lived on the younger unit there, and I lived on a few different units because I went through like kind of like 12 to 14ish there, and but he was a young kid. He was like 11, and like he was wild. He was so wild. Like he didn't care. He didn't quit. He had the heart of a lion. Like, and I can't even remember what was going on in this kid's life, but there were times where I knew that kid spent the whole night in that thing, whole fucking night. You know.
Was it outside? Was it in a building?
No, this was in a building. Like we weren't locked, but you couldn't leave. Like if you walked out the door, they'd chase your ass down. They'd come get you. Yeah, they'll come get you. But this was all indoors.
Okay.
At this place. But like outside of like kind of the practices with like medications, this is where they gave me a lot of. This is where I got introduced to Seroquel. They would try to tell me, they'd be like, hey, like if you don't want the booty juice, you can take the Seroquel as like a PRN, prescribed as needed, and like chill out that way. But if you don't take it, we're going to have to come in here and get physical with you, put a needle in you, put you in a burrito. And I was like, all right, I'll take the Seroquel, So
okay.
That's how that happened. When I was like 8 or 9, like my biological mother like basically left again, and she moved to Washington State and like never came back. And there was an ensuing custody battle and owed child support and stuff like that. And eventually she just gave up full custody in order to relinquish owing any of the child support. And so as soon as that happened, that was it. It was like I was like 11 when that happened. Then when it took place from like 9 to 11, and as soon as he got the custody, it was a wrap. So she wasn't around, and nobody else was really like, trying to help out. I didn't actually get to go home for like 7 months. They would give you
Riker?
Yeah. They would give you like these day passes initially. Like it was kind of how it worked, where you could go out for like 4 hours or something like that with a relative or family member, but somebody had to come and get you. So most of the time it would just be my uncle. Bless his heart, man. He's not with us anymore, but
rest in peace.
Yeah, man. He died in 19, and man, like he lived with us for 5 years or so when I was a kid in elementary school, and he coached me on baseball, and like he was probably the closest thing to a real father I ever had. So shout out to my man for that one. But
shout out, yeah.
Shit was hard, man.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, they started letting me leave and like go home like on weekends and shit like that. Basically, it's a transition of being home for like the weekends, and then you go to being home for like a Friday and like a Monday, and you'll take the bus from home to school, and then you'll stay at the facility all the way up until like, you know, like I was like taking a bus, like I was taking like public buses. Because like my parents wouldn't like give me a ride, but like I was taking like public buses from the facility to a regular high school to do like a hybrid school schedule, you know, because it's all interconnected, like it's all part of the school system.
Yeah. And
so they're trying to transition me back into regular spot. Like, you know, there's no like level system or thing that like gets you in or out. I mean, I guess it's like if you act right, you behave well and shit like that. I mean, obviously like that's good for you. But like ultimately, like I think it's just based off of like your family as well as like how well you're doing. Like I think it was like if the state won't fund it and they don't want to pay for you to have the bed there and they want to put somebody else there, then that's that. And like I seriously doubt my parents went to them and were like, yeah, we want him to come home now. Like I don't think that's how it works. So yeah. But this was the time period, the only time period, you know, preceding Rika that I was actually at home. So, you know, my father had started his own business, and it, you know, in a relatively short time period, you know, we went from being like pretty lower middle class to, you know, being upper class more or less.
And this was after Riker, right?
Just yeah, man. Like I literally like it was a different house. Like I lived in like a small town house, you know, when I left, and when I came back, it was a much bigger house. You know, no bullshit. It was kind of crazy. But I was going to new high school, and like everything was going great, man. Like I was playing sports, killing it. You know, won a state championship on varsity as a sophomore, playing football. Had a girlfriend, was getting laid. Like I was living the high school dream, man.
Nice.
But you know, it was short. I wasn't really like having too much problems in school. I wasn't having any problems in school. School was going great. I wouldn't have any problems at home. Home was going great. You know, I'd hit a pretty big growth spurt between 12 and 14. And like, you know, my family was well aware of like where I was, you know, during that time period. So nobody really wanted to smoke anymore, you know, especially not my brother. Like he used to kick my ass all the time. And like, I grew 4 or 5 inches and like, it spent 2 years in one of these places. And, you know, all of a sudden, like he thought better of it. But
right.
Yeah.
You don't poke the grizzly bear, man.
Yeah, he was a big kid. He was a big kid. But one day, like I mean, this was like, I think this was like December of like 2004 or something like that. My girlfriend's over, and long story short, without like being crazy with it or nothing, like my parents left. Nobody was home. Her and I started having sex. My mom comes back home, stepmom, and she comes upstairs and walks in on us. And she kind of goes nuclear over the shit, you know, like she's not happy. And they were like, yeah, we're going to tell her parents, and y'all can't see each other anymore, all this, you know, good stuff. And I was not happy. I mean, you know, I was not happy at all. Her and I were, you know, at the time, 2 peas in a pod, man. I don't know how else to say it. Like, you know, young love, like, think you're gonna get married. Like, it was like that. Like, I wasn't really being around like that. Anyways, that's when things kind of started slipping for me at home and in school. I got into this fight at school a couple months later. Some kid was like, we were playing like indoor hockey, and like some kid was like, kept on like hitting me in my shins with the stick for some reason. And I kept telling him, I was like, dude, like if you if you keep on, like, you're gonna have to see me in the locker room. And he thought it was funny and just kept on going. So later on, I came up in the locker room and I was like, "What's up, man? I told you I was gonna see you in the locker room." And he was like, "You're not gonna do nothing, man." And then like his friend came up. It was like, I don't know. He said something towards me and like, lifted his hand like he was gonna swing. And I was like, "It's on." And I punched the kid and broke his nose. Blood went everywhere. Buddy jumped on my back, fell on the ground. He came up, tried to get me on the ground. I kicked him in the face again. My boy came up and got the guy off my back, and it was a big deal. I got suspended, blood all over the locker room. Turned this shit to an MMA ring, man. Like, it's not my brightest moment.
Yeah.
Kind of like had everything going really, really good for me, and that is on me. Like, that's a fuck up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So that's 100, but that wasn't gonna like derail anything. It didn't get me kicked off the football team. It didn't get me kicked out of school. It didn't get me expelled or anything like that. I got suspended. My parents were pissed off about it. Life went on.
Mm-hmm.
Getting into the summertime and everything like that, I was still basically, seeing my girlfriend on the side, stuff like that. Going behind people's backs and stuff, like doing what any teenager would do. And I got a cell phone. The cell phones were coming in. My parents were like, "We want you to have a cell phone so we kind of keep track of you and stuff." Like,
Yeah.
And so like I racked up a bill on this cell phone, man. Like I did. Like, so it was like $500 or $600 or something.
I did that too.
Yeah, I mean, we all did it once, and they were like, "Yo, call me after 9, bro." Like, for those of us that are old enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And so they were like, "Hey, like, you got to get this job. You got to get a job and like pay this back." And I was like, "All right, I guess that's not so bad." We used to go to this like little Italian restaurant together as a family all the time. It's like a franchise, but like my dad knew the guys that owned that particular franchise, and he got them to give me a job busting tables. So every weekend, like I would go and I would bust tables at this Italian place, and you know, they'd pay me like $5 an hour cash, and then I'd make like whatever tips. I'd make like a small percentage of the house on the tips, and I get tipped out from the servers. And
Yeah.
if it was a really, really good night, like I could make $150.
Yeah.
In a really, really good night, and I make $70 or $80 at least. And this is 20 fucking years ago, man. Like,
Yeah.
and I was 15. Like, shit was good. I paid that bill off quick, and I didn't want to stop working. I was like, I got money. I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
My parents were like trying to take my paycheck, like take all my money from me and like hold it from me and like make me ask them for the money and stuff if I wanted it.
Yeah, my parents did some similar stuff.
Yeah. So the reason why this is important is because at the end of the summer, going into my junior year, during training camp, I get a back injury. We're doing like a scrimmage with another school, like at the end of training camp, and some dude blocks me in the back on an interception, and my back gets like jacked up. It's like a fucking question mark, and I had to go to a chiropractor for 4 weeks to get him to like realign it. It was pretty gnarly. But so I was kind of like out of commission, and I came back on. Like I think I missed the first game of the season. Was healthy the second game, and sometime after that, it was like on a Sunday. My dad like wanted the cell phone back. He was taking the cell phone, I guess, like for some reason. I don't even remember why. Like I don't know. It's because it was like they're like, we don't want you calling your girlfriend or whatever, so we're gonna take it away. I don't know what they're thinking, but That's what they wanted to do. And this point in my life, like, you know, like I'm big, like I'm strong, like, you know what I mean? Like my sophomore year in high school, like I'm, you know, 6 foot, 190 pounds, lift the weights, play football, like always taking the phone from me.
Yeah.
But it's stupid, like, because it's like at the same time, like I didn't realize this as a kid, but it's like just disconnect the fucking phone service. It's real simple. Like, you know what I mean? Cut it off, brick the phone, go get another one, end of discussion. Like, this is easy.
Yeah.
Parenting 101, folks. Like, this is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's even easier today when the shit's connected to the internet. Like, it's like, but nah, like they wanted that phone.
Yeah.
And I closed the door and locked the door in their face. I'm like, nah, you ain't coming in here and getting this phone. My dad was like, nah, I'm gonna get this phone. And he busted down the door. And, you know, because he's not actually my dad, I'm like 5 inches taller than he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, hold on, right quick. I'm like 5 inches taller than he is, right?
Yeah.
And so I just held my arm up in the air and didn't let him get it. You know, and he got big mad and like he actually ended up wrestling me to the ground and taking me to the floor, and I just kept on playing keep away with the phone. Like I didn't strike him at all. And at one point, he was laying directly on top of me. He's fat. He's like 220 pounds. And I just did a little push up, rolled right off of me. And at that point, like they freaked out. And they called my brother into the room. And all three of them just fucking jumped me. And he's like, my dad's like choking me out, like pushing my jaw up. And my brother's holding my one arm down on the bed. My mom's holding the other arm on the bed, trying to pry the phone out of my hand. They finally pry it out and left. And I was pretty fucked up over this, obviously, man. Like, this is some pretty fucked up shit, you know?
Yeah.
So the next day, on a Monday, my brother and I are outside the weight room, get ready to get in a lift. We're waiting outside, and probably 10, 15 other teammates there. I said something he didn't like or something like that. And he said something to the effect of like, you know, shut up before I kick your ass like I did last night. And I said, what? And man, I just went Mortal Kombat on this dude and just dropped him right there on the spot. And I walked away. Now, I didn't get suspended over this or in any actual trouble because, like, technically it was after school. It happened on school grounds. Like nowadays, like you probably would have like prosecuted that, but like back in the day, like nobody was there, nobody saw it. It was after school. Football team, you know what I mean? Like shit kind of flies through, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't fly through with my parents. Probably about 3-4 days later, on Thursday, that's when shit got real. So I drink something.
Yeah.
3-4 days later, my mom come pick me up from practice, which is weird because she didn't really usually pick me up for practice. My dad did. We go home, and as we make the final turn to go down the street to our house, I see a cop car sitting at the top of the street. I didn't think nothing of it because I didn't do shit. Like,
Yeah.
so we pull into the house. I go inside, walk from the front door into the kitchen, go get something to drink after practice, and my dad is standing there with a police officer. And they're more or less like, look, you gotta come with us. You know, you fucked up. My dad's like, you know, hey, like you gotta go somewhere because like we can't help you. Whatever kind of lines, I'm sure everybody's heard them.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't even remember some of it. Like a lot of it, you know, just block it out for trauma, you know.
Yeah.
But he told me, he was like, look, man, like I'm a cop, like an actual cop. He's like, if you run, we're gonna find you. if you assault me, we're going to charge you. So we could do this the easy way, or we could do it the hard way. But, you know, I think you're a smart enough kid to do what's right. And he was right. I knew I didn't have nowhere to go. I knew I wasn't going to run from the fucking cops. I knew I wasn't going to catch no charges assaulting a cop. I was fucked. It was checkmate, you know?
Yeah.
So I said to them, I was like, hey, like, can I at least like take a shower or something like that to buy some time? And they're like, no, but you can change your clothes. So I went upstairs, changed my clothes. I looked around my room. I knew there was nothing I could do, but the only thing I could think of is I ripped this piece of paper off the corner, wrote my girlfriend's phone number down on it, put that thing in my pocket, and went down and met my fate, cuffed me up. I'm sure my parents said something. I'm sure they said I love you or some bullshit like that. I probably told them they didn't. But that's when he took me to Shady Grove. Shady Grove is basically acute holding, just like Dominion was. You know, just a different place. The thing that was unique about this is that I wasn't really there for anything. They told me that I needed to be there because we were waiting on a bed somewhere else. So this is like almost like
transition.
Like the troubled teen industry version of county holding, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And this was fucked up because a lot of these places, like, they are designed for like 24 to 72 hours.
Yeah.
And I was there for 30 days, like 33 days. Spent my birthday there. Yeah, man. Therapist brought me a birthday cake and shit. Like, saw all kinds of crazy psycho people there. Because like, if you're in one of those places for 30 days, like, and it's a 24 to 72 hour cycle, like, you see a lot of motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I mean, just the most like mentally disturbed people. Had this dude, like, I don't know, he's like schizophrenic or something like that, like, attacked me, you know what I mean? Like, thought he saw something or heard something, like, just out of nowhere. I'm just like sitting there drawing, and dude just comes up and just fucking blocks me. Like, I saw a girl that was 13 and pregnant. All kinds of wild shit. But eventually my time came, my bed opened up, and it was like October of 2005. The same cop came and got me from Shady Grove, and he put me in cuffs and took me on a plane to San Marcos Treatment Center in, I don't know if it's considered like San Antonio or Austin, like somewhere in between there, but some of that east part of Texas. I had to go through an airport, and fucking cuffs and everything like that, man. It was shameful. Shameful. And when I got there, I remember getting off, I think it was in the San Antonio airport, and we go down and we meet the dudes, you know, that actually like work for the place that are gonna take me there. And, you know, dude kind of hands me off, and he's just like, good luck. And I was like, all right. And we walked outside, and the van was like right there, like boom, like right in front of the fucking door. Blacked out windows. Get inside of that thing, there's somebody in the back seats, two people up front. And they get in the car and they're like, yo, like, you know, people try to run and shit. So like, we gotta like put a fucking hood on your head. They're like, it's loose, so you'll be able to breathe, but like, we don't want you to be able to see shit. And so they fucking put a hood over my head like a fucking jihadi dude. And it took me out to like, you know, where the fuck this place is. And when we got there, got out and, you know, did the admin, didn't take everything like that. And then got up to the unit. But this place was crazy, man. Like this was like a whole nother thing. So basically what this place is this place is the worst of the worst. When nobody else will take you, like this is where they send you. This is where they say you can go. Like
so
a lot of
it's kind of like Jamaica, right?
yeah, kind of like Jamaica, but man, see, even worse than that because it's like, you know, a lot of like kids that were in these places would have never made it into like normal CD programs that like would have sent the kids to Jamaica because they wouldn't have taken them. Like they wouldn't have taken them off the brick. Like the kind of kid I was and the kind of kid that these kids were and stuff like that. Like they would have ended up doing like some shit like what happened in Provo. They'd ended up killing somebody before, you know, they fucking dealt with like some of the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was a different level of control and security and violence, like at the staff level and at the kid level, you know. This place, from its inception in the 30s, they started this place in the 1930s, right?
Yeah.
It's a state institution. And their whole thing is like, we're the stopgap for all the kids that you want to send to jail but don't have room for, right? And all the kids that would go to jail that are convicted that you don't have space for. Or if they're juvenile and they get convicted and they're just too young to go to a real prison and they're going to end up having to serve time in prison, they go there. They had fucking sex offenders. They had child sex offenders in this fucking place. Violent criminals, gang members. Like, you fucking name it. This place was serious. You know, my time there, like, you know, I've seen, you know, a staff get punched in the eye so bad that it fractured his eye socket. And he had to wear an eye patch for 3 months, didn't know if he was going to see out his left eye. There was a riot at the cafeteria. Whole ass riot, man. Just biblical warfare, like, you know, people getting smashed with trays and staff cracking radios over people's heads. You know, people out there with silverware, like, you don't even know what, you know. I seen a kid get stabbed in the face with a ballpoint pen right in front of my eyes. You know, sexual harassment, it existed, you know. Like, me personally, like, there was this kid on our unit. His brother was on the gang unit, but he was gay. And so he liked to push up on kids and shit like that. Thinking he could get away with shit because of who his brother was. And they had some weird shit at this place. One day, I don't know, like they wanted us to do like this Native American sweat lodge thing. And we all had to get naked, like in our underwear, and get into this fucking sweat lodge. And this kid had been trying to touch me, and this kid in the past. And then when we were in there, he tried to touch me again. And I just straight up told him, I was like, dude, if you touch me again, I'm gonna break your skull open with one of these fucking rocks. I was like, I'll fucking kill you. I don't care who your brother is. And it never happened again. But, you know, that shit happened, you know? That's real. But yeah, this was a bad place, man. It was a bad place. But it wasn't designed to be super long term unless the court said so. You know, like even if you wanted to pay them the money and shit like that, it's like they really weren't going to keep you for that long. This is more profitable for them to get somebody else in the door.
Yeah.
They did a lot of tests and shit like that because they worked with the hospital at the university nearby. And so, like, once they were done running the tests and everything like that, doing all the diagnostics and stuff.
What kind of tests?
Man, EEGs, sleep studies, like all kinds of like heavy diagnostic testing to try to see like, man, is there like, you know, anything wrong with this kid's brain or had any kind of like traumatic injury? Like, you know, I found out on the back end from my parents that they're like, oh, well, we sent you there to try to see like, you know, if we could get any other kind of diagnosis that would like help get you into some other kind of school because nobody would take you.
Wow.
And that's what they told me. Of course, they didn't find nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so that's when the educational consultant got involved. At least that's what I learned. And they found Threesprings, Paint Rock Valley. And that's in Alabama. this is probably the thing that's like most reminiscent of all the different places. Like, you know, San Marcos, like, again, like, there wasn't really much of a program to work. With the card drop, you were level drop, they had like a card level system and stuff like that, sure. But like, there was none of like the psychological torture, like day-to-day bullshit or anything like that. I mean, for the most part, it was like live and let live. Don't fuck with nobody. Nobody's gonna fuck with you. You know, it was really, really simple, you know. Um, and like, you know, eat or be eat. Like, don't be a fucking sheep, don't be a lamb, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's really it. Like, it was like, I mean, we were chilling, we were watching movies and like fucking, they had like a PlayStation 1 on there with like 5-year-old fucking games or something like that. Like, it was low key pretty fucking chill from that regard. As long as like nobody was getting like stabbed or there was no riots, nobody was fighting or crazy shit like that. Like, we were chilling. But this place, Threesprings, this was different. This was a lot different. This was a lot, you know, like every time I hear different people come on your podcast and they're talking about what their program was like, I always think about Threesprings, Paint Rock Valley. At the end of my stay at San Marcos, the therapist told me they tried to tell me, look, like, your parents said that they applied to like 48 schools and there's 2 that'll take you. Provo Canyon in Utah and this place in Alabama, Paint Rock Valley, Threesprings. And at the time, like, basically in order to get out of like San Marcos, they were trying to tell me, they were like, look, you can't have any aggression for 75 days, 60 days, something like that. They're like, because no, what they would call a step down program, which, you know, you've probably heard that term before. Like, they won't take you if you got like all this violence and you got this record. Like, you know, I mean, you know how the rules are and stuff like that. And it's like, if you're a savage like that, like, they just don't want the risk. It fucks up their whole model. You know what I mean? Like, all it takes is one person to just really, really not give a fuck and fuck some shit up and ruin everything in those kinds of places.
Yeah.
And so they were like, you got to do this. And so I did it. I mean, they told me I was going to get CD players, horseback riding, home visits. It was going to be like college, but like I was in like high school, you know, like they were selling me the dream.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. And they told me I only had the 2 options. And he's like, well, you know, it's a little bit more structured than we talked about, you know, because like, you know, you still got the record you got, like, and I was like, well, which one would you recommend? Like, and he's like, personally, I think for you, like, the one in Alabama is probably a better fit. And honestly, like, Provo Canyon, from what I understand in my research, it's probably more similar to San Marcos than Threesprings is. You know, it's an inside facility. You know, it's pretty hardcore. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah. So I mean, I think he knew exactly what the fuck everything was.
Yeah.
And that's why he told me go to Alabama. You know.
Yeah.
You know, if you got to have one, like, do that one.
Yeah.
So I went, and this time it was a little bit different because it was like a privilege, like it was like a reward, you know, to go to this step down program. I was willing, you know. So like when I went out, I didn't get hooded. Uh, you know, they escorted me through like the gate and everything like that. But I got on the plane by myself. And when I landed in like, I think I was in like fucking Birmingham, Alabama or something like that. I landed there and it was like my stepmom's brother or something like that. He like lived in like one of like the northern parts of Panhandle, Florida. So he drove up and had agreed to do the transport. And honestly, but hey, like, it was pretty chill in comparison. You know what I mean? Like he didn't want to have no beef. Like you kind of tell like he had been coached to like keep things pretty cool and like not bring up anything sensitive and stuff. Just kind of make it easy to get from point B to point A to point B. But like he was also cool, man. Like, you know, he let me sleep. Like, you know, he got me food. Like, he even took like a little diversion, man. Like I remember he like didn't turn where we needed to turn and like went up past the place to get gas and then like got me a soda. And he like actually left me alone in the truck like while he went inside for a little while. And I always wondered if I should have dipped right then and there.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
But I mean, it was cemented into my head that like I didn't have any options.
Yeah.
You know,
You probably didn't want to go back to San Marcos, you know.
well, and even if I made it, like, what was I gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like, so we pull up to the place, and it's crazy, man, because like we pull up in the daytime, like in the late afternoon, and on the surface, like what they call main campus, it looked idyllic, well manicured, brick buildings, kids running and playing in the field. And like he even said it, he pulled up, he's like, hey man, he's like, this doesn't look so bad. And I'm like, yeah, you know, maybe they're right. I was like, you know, I mean, it's not so bad. Like I was like, this starting to look pretty good. You know what I mean? I couldn't do any of this shit before. I was locked up in San Marcos.
Yeah.
That was locked down. So, you know, you go through the intake and everything like that, and that's when they drop the rules and standards folder. You know, like you know the process. So this is when they give you the thick thing that it's got all the stages and all the rules and everything you need to do.
They did give you a physical rule manual then.
Yeah, absolutely. Like literally before I got to the group, they dropped me one of these things.
Okay.
And they told me that I needed to memorize their rules and standards. Is like they called it the medicine wheel agreement, and then the Threesprings creed. So you want to talk about fucking cult? Like I just didn't even realize this when I was a kid. And I'm like, if you got a motherfucking creed, like, you know, and we had to memorize it and we had to read it before every meal. It was jacked, but they give you the folder. They give you this little bag called like a medicine wheel bag, and that's supposed to have your little plastic laminate card of the medicine wheel agreement and the creed in there, and you got to carry that with you at all times. So they gave me all this stuff like in the administrative building before I ever even got taken out to the group. Go out to the group, and you know it's everything that you've heard about, right? You know, yes sir, no sir, being in line, hit your corners, you know, peer to peer, like delegation of tasks and reprimands and punishment, just like the whole thing. Buddy watcher system, right? So like you come in and like you're not actually, the way it works, the stages that they have is buddy, then you got group member, then you got, I think it was like respected group member, like RGM, something like that, like designated group leader, DGL, and then SGM, senior group member.
Yeah, and these are the different levels.
Yep. These are the different stages of the program, and it's supposed to be a 12 to 18-month thing, and there's different visits that you got to complete during the time period too. Yeah. So, this place, like the kids were like a lot easier. You know what I mean? Like most of these kids were suicidal or, you know, had drug issues or didn't have any real issues at all. They just pissed off their parents and their parents didn't like them, man. Like I knew one kid that legit got sent there because he was gay. Yep. Like he was gay and his dad got mad about it when he came out, punched him in the face. CPS got called and he sent.
Yep.
Like straight up. Like so this was a lot more chill in that regard. But man, the psychological torture, the rules, the standards, the punishment, the labor. I mean, we lived like this was like in a valley, and we went to school and did all that stuff like on main campus, but we lived like up on a campsite that was like half a mile, like 3/4 of a mile, like up the mountain of the thing. So we would trek 2 miles basically just to like leave our bed in the morning and go down to main campus and then get back up from main campus at night to go to bed. But the food was pretty decent. They knew that we were doing a lot of shit, so they gave us a lot of calories. That's for sure. But yeah, living up on campsite, I mean, you had to chop a lot of wood. There was no running water. There was no heat.
So self-sufficient, and they made you guys do everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we took care of the campus. We ran the D hall. We built the structures. If we needed to, we shit holes in the ground and peed on rocks. And if we needed to dig a new hole, we dug it. I mean, we ran the whole thing.
Yeah, child labor, for those that want the real term or what that is, child labor.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, I mean, and it's crazy. I didn't even really like see it at the time, but like that's 100% what it was. Great fucking business model though, man. Like,
yeah.
But this place was really difficult. I haven't been home in a year, and man, there's so much stuff that just happened here. Like it's even hard for me to like kind of get into it all. But it took me 19 months to get out of there, largely because I got hung up in what we talk about a lot of these places, how they'll kick you back or stage regress you or do different stuff like that. What this place did was they would just stagnate you. And you'd think you were doing good and you would ask for a privilege. They did weekly feedback. So you'd have to, in writing, beg and plead for your fucking life, and then every week they would give it out in front of everybody, and it was just this crazy mixture every time they do this because, you just see these people. Some of these people are like really, really fucking happy. And some of these people are really, really fucked up. You know what I mean? And then when your shit came around, I mean, it was like, if you were fucked up, you had to deal with somebody else being happy, or if you were happy, like you had to deal with the guilt of somebody else being fucked up.
Yeah.
But they would just stagnate you. So it's supposed to take a week to 3 weeks to earn every stage, or every privilege, and you'd have people like myself where I went 24 weeks and got 2 stages in 1 visit over a 24-week time period of my 19-month stay. They just wouldn't give it. They just wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah.
And I stopped asking. Like at some point, like I just quit. I was like, you know what? I'm like, this, I'm gonna be 18 in like fucking 10 months. Like, fuck it, dude. Just let it ride.
Yeah.
And so at some point, like my parents were like, look, like, we want you to go to college and come home and stuff. So you got to start working your program. And literally, like a staff came up to me because I hadn't literally filled out the paperwork for it in like 10 weeks. And the staff like told me, he's like, hey, you should put in for your privilege this week. I didn't see this shit when I was younger, man, but it was like, they knew it was juiced, Yeah. And I hadn't done shit for it, but he told me to put it in. So I put it in, and I got it. And it worked. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, like, you're going to feel good about that.
Yeah.
But man, like, some of the shit that they did there, like, in terms of punishments, man, like, hardcore manual labor. Like, have you ever heard about the stumps?
Where they like have a huge stump and they tell you that you have to dig it out. Just you. Yeah.
Yeah. They had the stump labor. I knew this one kid that refused, and this kid was on stump for 6 fucking weeks, man. They had a stump labor. They would make him just carry rocks, across the field, stuff like that. One time I threw a piece of wood at this kid, and they made me carry 2 cords of wood up the thing by myself to the campsite in like these little 5-gallon paint buckets. And this was like on family day, you know what I mean? Like they would do like this once a month family day thing where the parents could come and it'd be like potluck and it was chill. Like a lot of the rules were like more laid back. I had to do it on that day. It's crazy punishments for stuff. But eventually they started giving me these stages and I got my first home visit. And it was like the first time I've been home in like over a year. But then I stalled again. I got back from the home visit. I tried to get that RGM stage, start getting into like the leadership part. And it was like another 7 or 8 weeks or something like that. And then all of a sudden, like I started getting up towards the end of my senior year. And it just overnight, it's like boom, stage, and start hitting like crazy. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't realize was my parents and the program were playing a game of chicken with each other. The program wanted to graduate me before I turned 18. My parents wanted me to stay there until I was 18.
Okay.
And the reason it ended up being is that the last thing you got to do as an SGM is you have to do what's called a transitional visit. So this is like your longest home visit. It's required. You do the home visit. As soon as you come back from that home visit, you are eligible to do a graduation ceremony and GTFO. Huh? Right. My parents delayed my transit. Like I was eligible for my transitional visit in like August, and they delayed it like 3.5 or 4 weeks.
Wow.
Until basically like when my birthday was. So I turned 18 over my transitional visit, and we had this dinner, my birthday dinner. And man, I can't even remember what happened, but I remember that my mom, like basically we went and saw this movie, and I was like kind of going back and forth with my brother about the movie. Nothing serious. Like he thought the movie was about one thing, and I was like, I think it's about this. And my mom just like made a thing about it, was like digging in on me at the restaurant. I was like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, just let me be. Like, let's just drop it.
Yeah.
And they were like, nah, that's attitude, that's problem. Like they
trying to get a rise out of you.
Yeah, it was a setup.
Yep.
It was 100% a setup from the jump. The very next day, they were like, yeah, you haven't changed at all. Like you haven't done anything. Like you know, you're not ready to come home. Like, you know, we'll talk about this when you get back to the program. And like, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Because like, I'm an SGM. Like, you know, I've gotten all the stages. I've done all the visits. Like, I'm ready to graduate, dude. Like, and I get back, and they're basically like, you know what? Like, you're 18. We don't want you in our house. You're on your fucking own. Fuck off. And man, I was fucked, dude. It's fucked up. But I had a saving grace, you know, like one of the family service workers, they had quit earlier, and they had gone after they quit being a family service worker at Threesprings. They got a job, you know, as an academic advisor. And I had been writing her letters, you know, for about 6 months straight now. And, you know, basically when I got back to the program, like I was living in a tent, like on main campus or like on these like clandestine campsites and stuff because they wanted me to stay out of the way. And I'm looking at like AmeriCorps and I'm looking at the military and like I'm just trying to figure out like any of these options I can figure out to like where I'm gonna go, because they were telling me, they were like, hey, like, you know, we'll help you out and stuff like that, but like you can't go home, but you can't stay here. Like,
yeah,
you know. So I've been writing her letters and kind of telling her what was going on, and it was now like Thanksgiving time, and my family service worker, she came up to me. She's like, hey, what do you think about like going to this woman's house for the holidays? And I was like, what you mean? Like, she was like, yeah, but she's invited you to like, you know, come and stay the holiday weekend at her house and do Thanksgiving with her family.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, dude. I was like, really? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, man. Like, I was like, I'd love that. So I went there and I spent Thanksgiving with them and everything like that. And they brought me back to Threesprings. And a few days later, like I sit down with the family service worker, and she's like, look, like, here's the deal. Like, this woman has, like, she's offered to give you a place to stay.
Wow.
She's and she works at a college, and she thinks that she can get paperwork through that would identify you as an independent in the financial aid system. She would allow me to get a full Pell Grant, 100% of the Pell Grant money, and unlock essentially unlimited student loans. Basically, I don't know if you know this, but like when you're 18, you're considered like, when you go to college, you're considered a dependent of your parents. And so like you get a limited amount of Pell Grant and you can't take out as many loans. They can take out more loans in your name, but you can't. And that's why like a lot of people wait till they're 25 to go to grad school and shit. But she was like, we could fill out this paperwork and like petition like the school board and stuff like that, or like, the federal government or whatever to like change your designation because of extenuating circumstances. And so like I had to write these essays and these letters and do interviews and shit like that. And they changed it up and I got the full financial aid and she put me on at the college. And so like I was able to live at that college. And go to school and stuff like that for a little while. So that's kind of like how it ended up for me, like when I got out. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I ended up moving back up to where I was originally from, like a little while after that, to be with my my high school exes, stuff like that, and like obviously it didn't end up panning out, but we had another couple of years together, something like that, and throughout my life, like. I ended up like getting a pretty good career and ended up, learning how to make pretty good money. And, things totally changed for me. And until a few years ago, like I got into a really, really bad motorcycle accident. And I almost died, straight up. And I totally fractured my fib tib and got a big rod in there. And when I got out of the surgery, like I was fucked up, man. Like I was just horrific PTSD.
From the accident or just from everything you've experienced in your life?
Man, I think, my therapist told me it ended up being everything.
Okay.
But that's like kind of like what set it off. He was basically like, look, like he's like, imagine like all your trauma in a box. And then something bad, traumatic happens, like a death or like a car accident or a motorcycle accident. And now, not only you got new trauma, but all that other trauma in the box, you just dump it out.
Yeah. And
a lot of veterans go through this. A lot of veterans are like, I did service and 3 years later I had surgery on my leg, my spine, some shit like that. And then I was like fucked up, and it just brought me back, man. Like it was like everything that I ever been through, and I was struggling hard, and, I started trying to like tell my wife about things, started trying to explain to her like what I'd been through and stuff, but like she didn't really get it. And then the program came out. And man, like that was terrifying for me, man. Terrifying. You spend so much time trying to hide it and bury it. You don't want people to know. You want to seem as normal as possible. You lie to people about where you went to school, where you got your degree from. You make shit up that happened like that didn't happen because you weren't actually there.
Yeah.
And now this thing is like on fucking Netflix. Like it's just there. You know what I mean? And like anybody that knew me, like anybody that really knew me, like from high school, and they see that shit and they're like, yo, that's where he went. Like he went somewhere like that, and that's scary, man. Like,
yeah.
But it made a huge difference in terms of just kind of like dealing with stuff. And like, I most recently, like, I talked to my mom, my stepmom recently, like I don't talk to my dad anymore. I ended up meeting my real dad but I don't talk to him anymore. I don't talk to my mom no more. So like, I talked to my stepmom real recently, man. She was like, "You fucking deserved it. Like, you were a terrible fucking child." Like, she just piled it all on. She never watched it. Like, so yeah, man. It's like everything kind of came full circle for me. Like much later in life as an adult, like when I kind of like achieved a certain level of success. Now that my life is like completely different, it was like finally started dealing with it, and I stumbled up onto your podcast, and I was like, dude, like, I haven't really heard a whole lot about these places, and I know that there's a lot of kids out there, that have been through some shit, and I just want to say my piece.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad I could have you on the show to share your story. I'm sure. I'm not sure, but I'm usually it helps to talk about it. So I hope that it's somewhat healing for you. I have some questions. For each place you went, what was the hardest part about being in each place, and how did you deal with it when you were there?
Yeah, so I'd say like the hardest part about being in the short-term facilities is like just being locked up. Like that's, you're in a very, very small room in a very small space. You don't get a lot of outside time. All the windows are fogged up, wire reinforced, and people are fucking batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're actually fucking crazy in these places. You know what I mean? Like they're not just like, no, like little Timmy didn't stop playing video games when you told him. Like they're like schizophrenic. They fucking hallucinate, like all kinds of wild shit. And so it's really difficult, like being in such close confines with people like that all the time. And low key just being locked up, like not being able to like fucking get any light or anything like that. Like it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For something like RIKA, RTCs, stuff like that. Like I think the hardest thing was just being away from my family or being away from home. Having to live in a different place and having to be dangerous, man. Like it was like I was a dog, but at the same time, like it was like I was around a lot of older kids than me, and like anybody that had been in places when they were younger, it was like they kind of dealt with that, and that shit kind of sucks. I think places like that, some of the other places, you carry a lot of guilt because you either eat or be eaten, and like when you're dealing with trauma and shit like that, it's basically like you get it from both sides, Like if you're eating, like you got trauma from that. You seen shit, you know what I mean? And like if you got eaten, at the end of the day, it's like you got trauma from that too. And someone like me, low key contributed to it.
Yeah.
And that's fucked up, man. Like so, that's the hardest part about being in places like that. And then, places like Threesprings, it's the psychological torture, man. It's the gaslight and it's the living conditions.
Okay.
Like it's straight up a concentration camp, dude.
Yeah.
Like we're living in the elements. We're outside fucking 15 hours, 18 hours a day, like, fucking working and doing labor and getting these crazy punishments and shit. Like it's
As children, as kids.
yeah, children.
Literally.
So I would say the living conditions and just like the psychological mind fuck of it was the hardest part of that.
Okay. And then for each of the places, what was the most fucked up thing you saw or heard about?
Yeah, so I think I hit on them. Like I think at the mental hospitals, like those two kids getting jumped. I didn't directly see it, but I heard it, and I'll never forget the way that sounded.
Okay.
And it felt like it took a while for them to get there too. I mean, that's really what kind of like jacked me up about that. I was like, damn, you think like these people could just be on it in the middle of the night, you know what I mean? But it just felt like I was like, why is this still happening? And then in Rika, like 100% the burritos, and like if you didn't go into that thing right, if you weren't perfectly straight, arms by your side and everything like that, like you could really hurt yourself. And like, you know, I know a kid that got their arm broken, you know, some fracture in their arm for being in there and having it sideways, and they wouldn't let him out. But also just some really sad stories, different kids that didn't really have no other choice or options, you know?
Yeah. Nobody vouched for him. Yeah.
Yeah. In San Marcos, like, man, the riot was crazy because like I had no idea it was gonna happen, and like it felt, man, it felt like I was like a fucking Saving Private Ryan on fucking Beach, man. Like it just felt like shit was flying everywhere, bodies were flying everywhere, and like, you know, I'd look here and somebody was getting smashed with a tray. I'd look here, somebody's trying to stab somebody with a fork, and then some staff runs up and saves some dude just upside his head with his walkie, like from holding it by the antenna. You know what I mean? Blam! Like,
Yeah.
cops come and like that was wild, but man, that kid getting stabbed in the face. I'll tell you, like, the whole reason why that kid got stabbed in the face is because he was trying to intervene to keep this other kid from getting choked to death.
Wow.
So the kid that stabbed him, I don't know what his beef was. I don't know. But he walked past this other kid in the hallway and he just decided that he was just going to beat the shit out of this kid, just wail on him, just start going in on him. And when the staff jumped in to try to like put him in a hold and intervene, he puts the kid in the rear naked choke and just starts going in on him. And he's not letting go. And we're all standing around watching and looking and you know how it is in these places.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
Yeah. And like this kid, the one that got stabbed, he was new. He'd only been there for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, guys, he's like turning purple. And we're like, yeah, man, that's fucking crazy, isn't it? And he's like, nobody's going to do anything about it? And I'm like, no, nobody's going to do anything about it. Are you crazy? Like,
yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah. And so he's watching and watching and watching, and the kid's turning colors and colors and colors. And he just decides like he can't take it anymore. And he runs in there and tries to help. And he tries to like break the hold of the guy's like arm around his neck, right? And he's using both arms to like pry it off. And eventually he makes just enough leverage to where the kid's like able to use his own arms and like wriggle his head out from underneath and escape. Staff tussles with the first kid a little bit more on the ground. And during the process, he picks a ballpoint pen off of her lanyard. And it's crazy. Like, I think it was kind of like a setup because it was like we had basically a staff that was like on break or like using the bathroom or something like that. And we were being watched by like female staff from the female side of the unit.
Yeah.
And so he takes his ballpoint pen and he palms it. And she didn't see it. And he comes up to the guy that like broke the hold of his arm. He was choking the other one. And he tries to like stab him in his side, but he like blocks it with his arm. And I don't think he clicked the pen either. So then he clicks it and he goes like right into his cheek, like into like his gums and shit like that. And he took it out and the staff got back up on him and everything like that. But, like this kid was just like gushing blood out of his face. And like, you could see it was just like a gaping fucking hole straight through his cheek, right into his fucking, like underneath of his teeth. You know what I mean? Like in his gums, like, and it was just like there. And it was like, I'll never forget how it was like, we were trying to like put those brown institutional paper towels on the shit. And it was like, it would soak the blood off. You take it away and you could see clear through that shit for like a second and a half. And then it would just fill up and like pour out with blood. So yeah, that was fucked up. And then at Threesprings, man, I forgot to talk about this one, man, but at Threesprings, early on in my stay, there was this kid, and he was one of these kids from Alaska. Like, you know, you might be aware that like Alaska has a lot of these state contracts, you know, to send kids from Alaska to these different places.
Yeah, my best friend in Spring Creek was actually from Alaska.
Yup, yeah, so you know what it is. So this kid, we were on what's called campsite. Campsite is like ultra heavy punishment where it's like You can't talk. You can't do shit. You can't eat in the D hall. You can't come down to main campus. And you just got to do labor all day up on campsite. And a lot of times it's like basically if more than half of the group is in some shit or getting in trouble, they'll just take everybody, put everybody on campsite. And it's enough to drive you mad because you got to chop all the wood to cook up there. You got to get water all the time, you know, up and down, and keep like at least 10 gallons of water up there at all times. You got to use the water to wash the dishes, cook, drink, all that shit. And it's just a lot of labor. You wake up an hour earlier every day. It's just straight up torture. And I think this one kid just went mad. And like nobody really knows what started it or what happened. But he like ran out of the cabin with a blanket wrapped around him. And the staff, man, this dude was a bad one. This was one of the worst ones, man. Dude literally had like iron brands on his chest from like being in gangs and shit. I don't know how the fuck he got this job. Like,
yeah.
But he was running around this kid, and he's a young kid. He was like 13, 14, something like that. He run around in the blanket, calling the guy a nigger. Pardon my French, but that's what happened, right? Yeah. And he's just hard R-ing it like at this staff and running around. And then he's like, "You can't touch me." And he pulls open his blanket and he's butt ass naked.
Yeah.
And I guess like the policy is like if they're naked, you can't touch them. So he gets the bright idea that he's just going to go completely ape shit, naked, wrapped in the blanket. Every time they get close to him, he's just going to pull the blanket off and be naked, be like, "You can't touch me." Well, the staff wasn't you know going to have any of that. And he started trying to chase him down. And when he finally got a hold of him, he wraps his arms around him and he lifts him up and suplexes this kid on the ground. Like feet came up, head came down. Kid's head comes down on a rock, just. And fucking helicopter came, landed on the fucking trailhead. They brought a bodyboard up, put him down there. Kid's head's dripping blood everywhere. I mean, just the whole fucking side of his head, from his eye to like, you know. And some of the kids volunteered to help carry the bodyboard down. They made the rest of us clean up the blood and shit on the fucking trail. And believe it or not, the kid survived.
Wow.
And he had like 30 or 40 fucking stapled stitches on his head, like, all the way across. His eye was black for weeks. The fucked up part was he was in the hospital for like a month, and then they sent his ass back.
I was gonna ask you, yeah.
Well, here's the thing: they sent him back as soon as he healed, then they discharged him.
No, okay.
Yeah, the parents didn't want anybody asking any questions.
Yeah.
You know, so they left him there to heal, and then as soon as they healed, they were like, "All right, we're getting the fuck out of there." And I don't ever know what happened to that kid, but I'll never forget having to clean his blood up off the fucking trail, man. Like, and the way that shit sounded, the way it looked. Yeah, that would have to be the worst thing that I saw there.
Okay. And did anybody try, like, did you ever try to run, or was there anybody memorable that tried to run from any of these places?
I knew lots of people that tried to run. Like, I just wasn't one of them. Like, man, if I was gonna run, I wasn't gonna wait till I got there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I had decided when I was in transport that it wasn't a good idea to run.
Yeah.
But at San Marcos, I knew kids that would run all the time, and like on the radio, they call it Code Purple. And this shit was always entertaining, low key, because, you know, certain staff, they like runners better than others. Some staff like to chase. And, you know, you'd be hanging out, maybe like Code Purple. Speedy Gonzalez out the door, taking off like a track star. All the kids are like trying to like catch a peek and like see what's going on. One of the kids had made it all the way into like downtown, like area, like around there in Texas or something like that, near like the college campus or something like that. And they like, you know, went out in the van and like eventually found a kid and yoked him up off the streets and brought him back. You know, Threesprings, there were lots of kids that tried to run. One not necessarily in my time there, but historically they did. And in fact, one of the reasons why they ended up getting shut down and caught a lot of heat was because two kids that did run, and Google this up on the news, they ended up killing somebody while they were on a run from another Threesprings facility. And this was much later in time too. But they were so hardcore about it. I mean, one, we were in the middle of nowhere, but they would lock up all of our clothes at nighttime, all went to locked trunks. All the shoes went to locked trunks. All the coats went to locked trunks. You know, like if you took an extra sit past like when you ate, like, I mean, I haven't even gotten into all the rules and shit because I just can't, but like, you know, there was like 5 minutes to eat, 15 minutes to eat or whatever it is. And then it was 15 minutes and 1 second and you were drinking a sip, like that's run risk, you know, like, so they were real strict about that stuff. And you weren't getting anywhere. So there were some kids that I heard of that tried to run, but not from my group. So.
Okay. And if you could go in a time machine, knowing what you know now and not go through any of these places, would you do it and why?
Man, like, you know, I've watched a lot of these podcasts and my thought on this question has changed over time as I've kind of like dealt with all this stuff. But I still think overall, I'd say yes, but not for any of the reasons that like anybody that's involved would try to make it seem like.
Okay.
You know, I'm kind of like I'm a spiritual kind of guy. Like you know, some elements of Buddhism, some elements of different things like that. And like, you know, I believe that all the granules on the beach make up the beach, you know. So you can't have a beach with 1 grain of sand, and you start taking away one piece of sand and 1 piece of sand and 1 piece of sand, and all of a sudden you don't have a beach anymore. Yeah. And so like, I can say that I'm proud of the man that I am today, and you know that I've grown and that I'm caring and I'm good. Like I'm just proud of who I am and where my life is at and everything like that. And you know, like I love my wife and I love my home and I love my life itself and everything that's in it. And I wouldn't have any of that stuff if just one thing had happened differently. Yeah. And, you know, there was a girl that had gone to Provo, I think it was, or maybe in a place in Jamaica. And she said the same thing about her spouse. And that really resonated with me. But I was like, yeah, man, like if it would have came out differently, like I wouldn't be with my wife. And like, you know, for where I'm at now, like I'd take my lumps. But you know, I found out on the back end that my parents lied to me about everything. Like I didn't have to go to any of these places. They made me live there. The county didn't make me live there. Yeah. And they told me that I got expelled from high school, that I had no other choice. But I got my transcript from the county, you know, just a few days ago. And it says that they withdrew me. And I never got expelled. And not only does it say that they withdrew me, but they didn't withdraw me out of school until 7 months after I got racked out. Like I was almost done with San Marcos and getting ready to go to Threesprings before they withdrew me from there. And I think the reason is that Threesprings was like, I believe had like an accredited charter school and you can't be doing old. It's like my parents didn't even give a shit enough to like do the official paperwork to withdraw me out of school. You know, they just fucking yoked my ass. So yeah. I do wonder a lot about like, you know, because I was a, you know, successful athlete, you know, I'm a smart guy. Like I really could have gone to college and played high level sports. And, you know, I do wonder what my life would have looked like. But back to my original point, I wouldn't trade any of the things that I have now for all the money in the world. You know, any of that shit that I just talked about. So you take the good with the bad.
Okay. And what have you struggled with the most as a result of being in these places?
Man, I mean, I didn't even realize like how bad my PTSD was until after my motorcycle accident. You know, I wasn't even able to identify trauma. I think the number one thing that really fucked me up about these places is that it's all fake. You know, they're all focused on what the parents want and how to make money. They don't really care about the kid. No. Because how did I go through all these places and all these therapists and not one of them said I had PTSD? Now, one of them said that I had experienced any trauma from any of the places that I had been at, despite clearly being textbook traumatic incidents.
Yeah.
You know? And these guys are mental health professionals. You know?
Yeah.
They're not. They take your fucking parents' money's professionals. That's what they are.
Yeah.
So it's difficult in that regard, you know, realizing like I can't slow down how fast I eat. I can't take showers quickly. You know, I have terrible nightmares, which I've been getting a little bit better with as of lately, but really, really big problems with sleep, getting to sleep, having nightmares, waking up with my heart pounding out of my chest and my amygdala just popping off, like, you know, and I struggle. I've struggled in relationships. You know what I mean? Like, it's in order for me to be really, really close to somebody, you know, like with my spouse, you got to get through all of this stuff. And for people that come from like a good background and stuff like that, it was like I had tried to tell her stuff for like a year or two before the program came out, and she like, it was like the program came out, she just started bawling, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just didn't understand. I didn't get what you were trying to tell me. Like I didn't know that you really, really meant that's exactly like what was happening." And I'm like, "Yeah, like it's fucking real, man." Like,
yeah.
So those are the things that I struggle with the most, is just general fucking PTSD, man. Like,
Okay. And what do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away to any of these places?
yeah, man. So I've thought a lot about this question too. And I want to preface it by saying there's not too many kids that actually, quote unquote, need help.
Yeah.
If you look at the gross number of kids that are in these places, it's too many fucking kids. You know what I mean? Like, anybody will tell you that's been there, maybe 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 of them were like, you know, they OD'd on heroin. Their parents were trying to save their life. You know,
Yeah.
I met a kid when I was in San Marcos that literally took the box cutters to his like artery, like in his forearm, like right between his bicep and his forearm, and just straight across on both arms, and had massive scars and stuff. And you're like, oh my God, like, you know, my kid's suicidal. I just saved their life. I gotta get them somewhere to like stabilize them or something like that. Like, those kind of kids made up a much smaller percentage of the population overall.
Mm-hmm.
This industry preys on parents that don't want their kids.
Yeah.
You know, adopted kids make up what, like 3% of the population or something like that, but they make up a third of the kids in these places. Every single story, every single kid that I've ever known, every single kid that I ever met, they're a victim of physical, mental, emotional, psychological, sexual abuse. Okay, they're adopted, and their parents don't want them anymore. You know, and that's and that's hard to hear, and it's hard to say even for myself, but like, you know, that's what it is. And for me, San Marcos was recommended by my psychiatrist, the person prescribing me the medications. And then an educational consultant had recommended Threesprings. And these people look for the narcissistic parents. They look for the parents that have the adopted kids. They prey on them for money and opportunity, and they don't give a shit about us. And so, in terms of like what would have helped me instead of going to one of these places, like, I mean, for one, a real fucking family. Like, if my dad didn't want me and he knew I wasn't his, then he should have gave me up. Period. Should have done what was right for the kid. My stepmom, she knew. She never did what was right for me because he told her that he was going to divorce her if she did. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think very simply, just being in a different household, I would have grew up differently. I would have developed differently. Like, you know, but that's not the cards I was dealt. So yeah, man, like if in my mind, if you're a parent that's thinking about sending your kids to one of these places, I got nothing to fucking say to you. There's nothing to say to you. You're already that kind of person, and you're gonna do it regardless of what I fucking say, because you're fucked up.
Yeah. It's never a good idea to send your child away. It's always like more than likely, like more than 99% of the time, it's something going on in the family or something that happened in their childhood, and they need a way to express that, and they need hope. They need to be given hope and nourishment and just what a child actually needs. And you need to do it as a family unit, in my opinion. That's my own opinion. Keep it in the family. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything more you want to share about your experience?
No, I mean, honestly, like, I'm sure, like, if I go back and, like, I watch this, like, I'll be like, oh man, like, I missed this or I missed that. You know what I mean? But, like, at the end of the day, like, especially just through watching your podcast, man, like, a lot of people, it's like they probably feel like they're the only one that went through it. And I'll watch your podcast, and, like, even when you're in a certain place, they try to tell you that, well, this place is different, and that place is different, this school is like this, that program's like that. And man, the more of these things I watch, the more I'm like, man, they're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all the same. And so, man, like, you know, I just wish it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So I'm sure there's other things that I'll remember, but I think, like, through the body of work that you're putting out, man, like, if people pay attention and they listen to other people's stories, like, they're gonna hear all the similarities. They're gonna get the point. So, you know, I don't have to hit it, you know, check mark for check mark.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as always, that I do with all my guests, if you do watch this video, or just, like, it happens a lot, like, more than people probably know. If something comes up and, you know, just write it down, and take some notes about what you want to talk about next time, and you're always welcome to come back on the show. Always welcome to come back and talk. Or if you just need somebody to talk to, we can even do it off the record. So,
Yeah. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. And with that being said, you guys that have watched so far in the video, please make sure you subscribe if you're not already. It really helps out the algorithm. Like, comment, and share the videos so we can get everybody to know about these places, and hopefully get some new legislation, or at least keep children out of these fucking places. So until next time, we will catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.